What's up, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of the Sitdown. As always, if you enjoy this video, please make sure you hit that like button and let me know what you think of tonight's discussion in the comment section below. If you're new around here, you just haven't done it yet, or you're living in Iraq and seeing this video for the first time, I don't know what you're waiting for. Hit that subscribe button below now so you never miss another Sitdown video. What's up, everybody, and welcome in to another live video today. We are delving in to another very interesting discussion with an associate of the Mafia. Several weeks, actually months ago, we spoke to a guy, Lewis Kasman. Lewis is the adoptive son, at least he calls himself, of John Gotti. And we got to know his relationship with John Gotti. We had an interview. It was interesting. And tonight, we're going to bring him back. We're going to see what Lewis has been up to. We're going to get some questions from the listeners, and we're going to talk more about his time associated with the Mafia. He was a guy who handled John Gotti's money. He was a guy who had a relationship with John Gotti's wife, his kids. We're going to talk about all that and more. So make sure you show some love and say hi in the chat. Make sure if you have a question for Lewis, you drop it. We will try to get to as many questions as we can. I had people that sending questions before the show under a community post that I put out. And I also am addressing you all in the chat. If you have something to say, you can say something in the chat as well. Make sure if you're enjoying our content and you want to support us, hit that super chat icon, donate to the channel. Anything that you give is greatly appreciated. So let's get to the show. Before we do that, I do want to remind everybody to check out my recent breaking news video on Gene Borello. Yes, Gene was arrested again. This time it's not going to hurt him too bad, but his behavior continues to be problematic for the former Bonanno associate. So make sure you check that out now. My breaking news story on Gene Borello getting arrested in Tampa. Let's bring in our guest for today, Lewis Kasman, in a nice new house. Lewis, what's up?
How you doing, Jeff?
Good. You got that nice house with the fireplace in the background. You're living large.
Yeah, living happy. Finally, a little bit happy. Yeah.
I hear you on that. I want to welcome everybody in. As always, I don't think I did that just yet. Thanks everybody for watching. If you have a question for Lewis, feel free to drop it. Lewis, we had you on the show a month or two ago. We had an interview. You gave us some really interesting information about who you call your adopted father, John Gotti Sr. You talked about your comings and goings connected to the mob. You talked about the time that you had and all that. And I want to get to it. I want to get some questions and take some questions. First of all, how you been? How you been holding up?
Well, good. Yeah, I'm doing great.
Good. And luckily, you're not in your car this time. We had you in your car last time out.
No, I know. I finally figured how to use a computer.
Yeah. Why the fake background? Because I guess Lewis doesn't want you to see the walls and behind himself. I mean, it's just a stock background. It's no big deal. But Lewis, for anyone that doesn't know who you are, kind of delve into that quickly, because there are many people that maybe are new to this genre, new to this world. They obviously know the name John Gotti, but tell them a little bit about you.
I know John from the early 80s. I met him through his brother, Jeannie. And, we just became best friends. And it was a father-son kind of relationship. And, so that's really how it started. And I was involved with his day-to-day personal affairs, personal business, so to speak. Not as much into the OC side at the beginning, but then it did get to that point because of various things that were going on about 2 years before the last arrest.
Yeah, you obviously were involved in the garment industry. That was businesses that you had. You were up there, and you obviously were involved in it throughout your time, connected to the mob, but you also handled a lot of John's money, his businesses. You kind of made sure things were in line with that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And all that kind of thing. And I want to kind of start out with some questions here, because recently, Joe Caridi died. Joe
Mhm.
was a made man in the Lucchese crime family. And a question came up, asked Lewis to tell the entire story of his involvement with Hudson and McCoy restaurant, including Joe Caridi. And Joe was a mobster who, from what we know, knew the owner of Hudson and McCoy. The owner claimed you were shaking it down, and
Mhm.
Joe Caridi was able to kind of rid you of that business and everything. Can you talk about that story and what went on there?
Sure. Um, Hudson and McCoy was started by Frank Basile and Roger Basile, whose father was Phil Basile. Philly Basile was owned all the nightclubs on Long Island, Spratch, Channel 80, 231, Speaks. And he was very close to, he was around Paul Vario. And I basically grew up with Frank Basile. So all through the years, um, I was on record, obviously, with the Gambino family, John. And then we went on record with Phil got permission to do business with me because of the friendship through Paul Vario and through John directly, and also with the administration of the Lucchese crime family. Now, this relationship was a 20-year relationship. Joe C. gets involved because we open up Hudson and McCoy, and the place is a killer. We're doing crazy numbers. The place in Freeport, Long Island, it's sold out every night. No reservations. You can't get in. Outside bars doing crazy. Inside bars, the place was off the hook. And I brought Pete in with me, Pete Gotti, who was then the boss of the acting boss, who whatever he was. He wasn't too much of anything. And but I got a call one day from Sal Scala, Fat Sal, who was a captain at the time, and he says, "Meet me in Huntington. Let's take a walk around the mall." So we go to the mall. He says, "Listen, I just want to give you a heads up. If you think Pete's going to help you with Joe Caridi and the Lucchese family," he says, "forget it. It's not happening." He says, "I'm a captain, and I'm getting fucked by Joe C." He says, we're partners in him in some stripper joints on Long Island. He says, and we're getting fucked by Joe C. and the Lucchese family. They abuse Pete at the sit-downs. In fact, I tell Pete not to go anymore, Sal's telling me. Then there was a place in the city, another titty joint, and Pete says to me, "I want you to go into that place and get involved and see what the numbers are." I says, "Pete, the numbers are what they are. You're never going to get true numbers from Joe C. and the Lucchese family." So long and short of the story, Joe C. intimidates and threatens Roger Basile and Frank Basile. And what they do is Joe C. makes up a whole story with this Johnny Sideburns and some other scumbag in the Lucchese family that the Basiles are unhappy. The Basiles aren't unhappy. I was the father's power of attorney. I did everything for his father. The father died of a terrible disease known as scleroderma. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And it was a terrible disease. And before on his father's deathbed, he says, "Lewis, please take care of everything for me." He says, "I have two kids that are two fucking morons." And Frankie Basile, should rest in peace, he died of colon cancer at 50 some odd years old. And his brother Roger, very bad kid, used to beat up the mother, bounce her off the walls. And it was just a very bad situation. So to get back to the question, so there's a sit down in the Holiday Inn by Kennedy Airport. The Basiles are there, Roger and Frankie, and this guy Chubby, who was a childhood friend, Albert Guarino, of Phil. And who's there? Johnny Sideburns and some other blowjob from the Lucchese family, and Richie Gotti. Pete decided not to go to the sit down at the last minute. So Richie Gotti, you could buy with a Stop and Shop gift card for $50, you know. And so what happens is I saw what was going on. So I said to Richie, in front of all the Lucchese's there, I said, "You know what? I'm going to excuse myself from this sit down. This is not a sit down. This is a fuck you." I said, "But you know what? John Gotti's still alive. So somehow I'm going to make him aware of this, and I'm going to excuse myself from this sit down. If you call this a sit down, your sit down, Jeff, is more influential than Richie Gotti going to a sit down with you. And I walked out of the meeting, and what happened was I wanted out. That was the end of it. I didn't want to. Pete sold me out. Pete Gotti sold me out. I was giving him $500 a week for doing nothing, but I learned afterwards Pete was sitting on a condominium on the balcony, watching all the people come in. So he wanted more than $500 a week. I wouldn't give him more than $500 a week. So he sold me out to the Lucchese's. I got a lot of money. I got all my money back plus. And the Seals went out of business shortly thereafter because Joe C took over and he was putting all the Sally bread. Frankie flew over the cuckoo's nest. Joe's in the river. All these people he put in the place. And the place ultimately was closed up by the government. Multiple wiretaps of Joe C threatening on the phone.
How much were you making there a week?
Pardon me?
How much were you making there a week?
Probably about maybe $50,000 a week.
$50,000 a week.
Yeah, $50,000 a week at the beginning.
And you're only giving Peter $500.
Yeah, that's all he was entitled to. He had no brains. He didn't do anything.
So you were shaking them down. You then
No. I put up all the money to build the place.
So you thought you were
broke.
entitled to $50,000.
Right, they were broke. All we did was put the license in his name.
So did Joe C come in and try to shake them down, and he ultimately did?
What happened was Joe C tried to shake them down for $15,000 to $20,000 a week, and Roger Basile went to the FBI and testified in the grand jury against Joe C and Johnny Sideburns.
What do you think about that Joe C passing away?
He's in mafia heaven with the rest of the scumbags. Joe C was a bad guy. He had listen. If John Gotti was on the street, Joe C would not behave that way. Pete couldn't handle it. Pete was out of his league, in all fairness to Pete. And Joe C took advantage of him. Joe C abused him in all their business ventures. And Sal told me, he warned me, he says, Lewis, do not count on Pete. Not happening. And then John Jr. sent a message when he heard I opened up at Sonoma McCoy. He was furious that I took Pete in as a partner and not him.
So he wanted the money.
Correct. But we had to build this whole place out. It cost upwards of $500,000. So we had to build this whole place out. The Basiles had no money. They were broke at that point.
Right. So they closed. How was the food there? Was it any good?
Excellent. You couldn't get in the place. It was sold out for 1 year. You couldn't get in the place.
So they were better when you were around as opposed to Joe.
Well, I have to say, Frankie Basile, a great person, good guy. I trust him with my life. He got sick. He got cancer, and his brother sold him out. His brother was a bad guy. His Roger Basile is a sick kid, very bad kid. He used to do crazy things to women, just crazy shit used to go. And got locked up 3-4 times. Used to beat his mother up, throw her off the walls.
Joe C is Joe Caridi. He recently died and was in the Lucchese family. Wow, that's pretty crazy. I didn't know it was $50,000 a week. That's pretty unbelievable.
But let me just tell you something. Joe C at the time was the consigliere of that family.
Yeah.
And he kept wanting to see me at this place on Jericho Turnpike, and I used to duck his calls because finally I did meet him, and I said, Joe, what are you looking to see me for? You got to go to Pete. I really, I went as a courtesy. I said, but I'm not coming anymore.
So he was trying to shake you down and
not shake me down. He wanted me to abandon the Basiles. He knew he couldn't shake me. No one was shaking me down except maybe John Jr. But he just wanted me to leave the Basiles and not have nothing to do with them anymore because he wanted to shake them down.
Gotcha. Do you have any good John Sr. gambling stories? We know he was a big time gambler.
Yeah, he was a big time gambler. John had a good friend, this guy by the name of Ali Lizza, who was one of the owners. Al Lizza, who was one of the owners of Lizza Industries, who used to do all the paving on the Long Island Expressway, et cetera, and the Meadowbrook Parkway, all those things, all over. And Ali used to own horses, so Ali was beside myself. Ali was the only one that was permitted to go to John's residence in Howard Beach, and he would give John tips on horses. Of course, most of them would never win. So yeah, John John was a bad gambler. 300, some 200,000 on a Monday we owed. We used to win 200,000 and still owe 100,000 on Monday. So he was a bad gambler.
You handled a lot of his money. What was that like as a money man? I mean, that's a lot of money to shell out each week on the regular.
Yeah, but you got to understand, Sammy was kicking in 200,000 or 300,000 a week. Pete was going to Staten Island. I was sitting in the car because I don't think John trusted Pete too much. And Sammy was giving him a shoebox, 200,000, 250,000, 300,000. So and a lot of that money we were using to pay the gambling debts, and a lot of it we didn't use to pay the gambling debts. Every weekend wasn't a loss, but I think there were more losses than wins.
Was there ever a situation?
It's too bad he didn't know you. You could have been giving him the baseball and the football games.
I have some tips. Let me ask you, when it comes to gambling, did he ever not pay and just say, what are they going to do about it?
Let me tell you something. He paid every gambling debt he had. Even when he was broke, he made sure he got the money together. And that was Jeannie and Angelo's biggest complaint, was they were worried come Monday morning what this guy owed. But I have to tell you, Jackie knows, or myself, if Monday was settle up day and we weren't there by 10 o'clock in the morning, we had a problem. John never beat anybody.
Yeah, we hear stories that a guy like Joey Molino owes hundreds of thousands of dollars and never pays bookmakers. So you gotta pay your bookmakers because when you're owed, they pay you.
Yeah.
Who is taking bets for John?
Pardon me?
Who is taking the bets?
Well, yeah, some Gambino bookies, but a lot of them would push it. When they push it off. Yeah. So a lot of Gambino guys, a lot of Colombo guys, but mostly he kept it in house. It was like a family tradition. Keep it in the family.
Got you.
But everybody got paid. If like I said, if Saddle Up was Monday, Jackie and myself, we better be there by 10:30, 11.
Good stuff. Do you know if John Sr. ever personally killed anybody?
I do not. I was never present for those goings on.
Now, I will say there is rumor that he did. We obviously, as Lewis said, he wasn't there and he wasn't told anything. It's not like these guys sit around and say, hey, I killed Joe and I killed Paulie and I killed Richard. It doesn't really work like that. We do know that it's possible John Gotti whacked Tommy DeSimone. We've heard that. We do know that Joey Messino says that he was involved with Vito Borelli as well. So my guess is John didn't get to the point that he got to without doing it at least once.
Correct.
Is it in copyright? No, I'm not sure that it is.
I mean, I'm aware of it, but it wasn't a topic that I was going to discuss with him over dinner.
Sure.
Or like who's getting whacked this week? Who's going to get whacked this week, boss?
This is a good one. Why was John Gotti so insistent on not taking plea deals? So many of his top guys could have been out and earning if they did take plea deals. Why was he so insistent?
Okay, that's a great question, and I'm glad your viewer asked that question. That was like an old school thinking on his part. No, you never take a deal. Okay, but in hindsight, and as time went by, the one regret that he did have is that he didn't let Jeannie, his brother, take the deal. Yeah. I will say that. And he expressed that to me several times. He says, this plea deal stuff, he says, I would, and he would, he would like mope about it. And he says, he had, a bad feeling that he didn't let his brother Jeannie take that deal. I will say that. And of course, afterwards, as you know, everybody was taking deals, including his son. But I have to say, they did bang John with, 4 or 5 trials.
We also do know that John Sr. took a deal too in the McBratney case.
Yeah, well, that was a setup because Roy Cohn represented him. The fix was in with the judge. The fix was in with the amount of time he was going to get. So that was just, that was Carlo Gambino's, thank you. Because Roy Cohn had, most of those judges were in Roy Cohn's pocket back in those days. So the fix was in there. That's why John took that deal, and that was with the permission of Carlo Gambino.
Sure. But yeah, as you know, I mean, Carneglia talked about getting out if he'd have taken a deal. Obviously,
Yeah.
Gene. So yeah, it's a shame they didn't, because they would have been out there earning, and I think would have been very
Well,
helpful.
think about this, Jeff. What a different day if Gene Gotti was on the streets when John was the boss. There'd be no Sammy Gravano. There would have been no cooperators on that level. There would have been no Ravenite upstairs in Cirilli's apartment, because Jeannie would have never let that go on. So a lot, unfortunately, you can't go back in time. But if, with the knowledge I have, and I do the look back sometimes, had Jeannie been on the street, a lot of things would have been different. Sammy Gravano would have been in Staten Island, still playing with his brother-in-law before he chopped him up.
Let me ask you, what is the prevailing thought about Gene Gotti? He's not retired from the life, you wouldn't think, right?
I don't know. What did Gene do? 40 years in jail. He missed weddings. He missed childbirths. He missed a lot of things. So, I don't know. I mean, he did pay his dues, and he's certainly not a poor man. So, whatever he does, I wish him well.
John liked to hit the town. Any stories about that?
He liked the good life. He liked Florida. He liked Gurney's. He liked going all over. Always a perfect gentleman. Just a good guy. Tipped well, ate well. A class act all the way. A class act all the way. Wherever we went, hotels, wherever he went, a class act. They would hug him and kiss him when he left. They just, that's the kind of guy he was. He drew people to him. I'll tell you a funny story. We were at the Marriott Harbor Beach in Fort Lauderdale, and we would always rent 2 cabanas. He wanted, a cabana for himself and myself, and then a cabana for Joe Watts and Jackie the actor and Jackie D'Amico. And then, of course, all the other, all the other fellas would come over to see him, because it was like, as soon as they knew he was in Florida, there were 30, 40 guys coming to the Marriott Harbor Beach. So one day we're all at the cabana, and this young couple, they wanted to meet John. So they're walking over, and there was a big hot tub in the middle before they could get to John. And they didn't realize there was a hot tub there. They were so excited to see John that they both fell in the hot tub. And you had to just see it to believe it. And of course, John went over to grab them to get out of the hot tub. But it was a very funny story,
So that was the kind of guy he was. That's yeah. I mean, did he also? We saw in that film that he bought people champagne when they asked to meet him and stuff.
No, that's not true. Not true. Not true. If he was there and other wise guys who were around, they'd send over. He'd send over. If there was a young couple at a table, maybe like at Denoy in New York City that he owned, maybe he would, send over something or the stuff like that. But no, John wasn't. John never behaved that way. Now Joe Watts behaved that way, but not John.
There was a woman she's still on YouTube.
Yeah, I know. She was Mark Ryder's girl. Right. She was close to Ryder. John
says that John called her Rocky. Is that true?
I don't know. I doubt it. That's, if you look at that woman, that's nothing that John would be interested in. She may be a lovely lady, but I don't recall ever seeing her, in my entire lifetime around John.
Did John ever speak about his brother, Bill Gotti?
No. We knew he was in California. We knew that. Pete used to talk to him, Pete and Richie.
Why didn't John?
Just never spoke about him. Never spoke about him. You got to understand, John came from a very, very poor childhood, dirt poor. They had no blankets in their house. They used to use potato bags to cover them with a hole in the roof. Very, very poor people. His father wasn't a provider. His mother wasn't a provider, and they just grew up very, very poor. John and Jeannie were the only providers in that whole family. And John, till this day, when I say till this day, before he passed away, John put his mother, in a nice apartment in Howard Beach. The father had passed away. John buried the father, but and his mother never wrote John a letter. while he was his entire time in Marion and in Springfield, his mother never wrote him a letter. In fact, when we buried John at the funeral parlor, John's wife, Mrs. Gotti, came over to me and says, I don't want his mother. You know how they have the chairs set up in the front row for the family? The family did not want Fanny was his mother's name. They did not want Fanny in that row. So I had to go to Richie. I told Richie, who stole the funeral money, to take, that that Victoria didn't want the mother sitting up there.
Why not? Never
wrote him a letter. She really had nothing, I don't think John, there was nothing. It was not like a mother-son relationship on any level. I mean, when a guy's doing life locked up 24 hours a day, a card or a letter is not the worst thing to do.
We're speaking to Lewis Kasman, former associate of John Gotti, former associate of Gambino family. Always good to chat with you, Lewis. You always got a lot of interesting kind of thoughts about the life and about John Sr. What did you think of the 1996 Gotti movie? Was it an accurate representation? Thanks for coming on tonight.
Absolutely not. Not one movie that has been made has been any accurate depiction of John in any way, shape, or form, including all that bullshit that Junior puts out there with this burner and other people. Bullshit.
What do you mean?
That's not John Gotti Sr. That's not who he was, and that's not what he was about. I don't know who they're talking about when they talk about him, including his son. Who are they talking about? That's not the John I know.
So you're saying in terms of like doing interviews, or what do you mean?
The interview with Berna, it's fantasy. 70% fantasy, and there's some truth mixed in. That was not about his father. That interview was all about him. Their whole relationship was transactional. That's all it's about. He's selling his father's name. No one cares about Junior Gotti. Everything reverts back to Senior.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. That's, I think, something we've always seen with John Jr. Did any of his warnings go into normal stock market? Did any of his warnings go into normal stock market investments or real estate? The Gottis would be billionaires theoretically. I don't know what warnings mean. Did John ever do any investments like that though?
No, John didn't do any. But Victoria played the stock market.
I know that she has real estate as well. Jay Casenza, thank you for watching. And if you have a question for Lewis Kasman, feel free to drop them now. What was John's favorite restaurant?
He had a lot of favorite restaurants. He liked Denoy. He liked Club A. He liked, he was all over. It was all over. He did like Peter Luger's for steak. He liked Altadonna in Queens. He used to eat kind of things like, fish on pasta. He loved, but he was all over the place. He liked tuna fish. When he used to come to work, he said, "Lewis, get me a good tuna fish sandwich." He loved the tuna fish sandwich.
As well.
Yeah, he liked a good corned beef sandwich too. Like Chinese food. 5 a.m, he'd call me up. I'd meet him in Queens at the Chinese restaurant with Fat Bob. That was like the beginning of his night, 5 a.m.
What Chinese food did he eat?
He used to order 5, 6, 7, 8 things on the menu. And it was just like, we just all dig in. Yeah, he liked that.
Why did the Gotti family call you Judas?
Well, I think because of the whole thing that took place with the cooperation. But, you have to understand, I knew all about Junior. I knew what Junior was going to do. I saw his conduct. I saw his behavior. I saw everything, how he robbed money, robbed people. I loaned him $150,000 to buy the property that Eddie Leno owned, where he's getting $10,000 a month now in rent. I loaned him $150,000. I have a signed promissory note notarized by Richie Raybach. Never paid me back the money. And his mother loaned him $150,000. That's what we had to give Eddie Leno. And what happened was his mother calls me up. She says, "Pass by the house if you get a minute." So I go by the house. Now, this is his mother. His mother says to me, listen, we're going to loan him the money, but you know me and you are not getting the money back. I says, yeah, I know that. So she says, you do what you have to do. Make sure you're covered for the 150. I says, what about you? She says, don't worry, I'll get the money back. She says, one way or another. He never paid his mother, and he never paid me. I was his partner. You're going to be my partner there. I was his partner in everything, according to him. I don't see no money coming in. Maybe it's going to you. I never got a dime from any partnership. He's getting 10, 12, maybe 15,000 a month from that property. Never paid me back. I should execute that note.
You should.
Any business you went into with Junior, you got fucked. Whereas any business you went into with Senior, right down the middle. So you tell me. And he was the boss, the real boss. Bosses don't have to give you 50-50. Me, he did that with, I don't know if he did that with everybody. I can only tell you how he was with me.
What are your thoughts on John Panisi? Do you know him?
I don't really know him that well, no.
Okay.
I don't know.
By the way, guys, hit the like button if you're enjoying the content. It's always good to have Lewis here answering some questions, going through some things. How much was John making per month?
I would say upwards of $1 million some months.
Wow, $1 million a month.
Some months less, some months more.
He had the marketing company. What kind of things went on there?
Scorpio Marketing.
Yeah.
The name of the company was Scorpio Marketing. It was located on 36th Street in the Garment Center. And that's where we would do business with various, multiple manufacturing companies in the Garment Center of New York that Tommy Gambino would get us.
So how did this work? So let's say, John, you were John's bank, right? What does he just come to you and say, hey, I need 50,000 and you give it to him? Did you pay the bills? Like, how did that work?
Well, money was coming out of the business. In other words, money would go into the business. John would get a paycheck. Money would go into the business, and it was run like it was a legitimate business. We had Liz Claiborne, Ralph Lauren, Bob Mackie, Virgo, we had major companies. We weren't doing business with mob guys. It was made. If they ordered, whatever they ordered, they got. There was no games. There was no tricks. Our prices had to be competitive. We weren't going in there with exorbitant prices, and that's where he was deriving, his legitimate sources of income.
So the illegitimate money you weren't dealing with, you were just dealing with the legitimate money?
Okay.
I'm asking.
What are you asking?
Were you dealing with that too, or just the legitimate money?
A little bit of everything, I guess.
Gotcha. Wow, $1 million a month in his heyday. That's good stuff. Do you have any thoughts on Mikey Scars? Do you watch his channel?
I think Mikey should call up Junior. They should kiss and make up, because Junior would have no money if it wasn't for Mikey Scars. Junior didn't know the first thing about construction. Okay. Mikey Scars was a very well-liked guy. He was trained by Jackie Nose. Jackie Nose was a very well-liked guy. So Mikey was handling the construction for a while, which was massive. And, they made money together. To this day, I do believe Mikey Scars would not have cooperated if Pete Gotti didn't fuck him. Okay. When Mikey got arrested, I said to Pete, get him a lawyer. The guy's laying up there. He was freezing. It was just a terrible situation. Pete says, no, I'm not getting him a lawyer. Fuck him. But if Junior wanted to get him a lawyer, because Junior knew he was arrested, Junior could have sent word to Big Steve, to me, to anybody, make sure Mikey Scars gets a lawyer. And we got no such message of that kind. Junior was only interested how much money I was making from Hudson and McCoy and why he wasn't a partner.
Wow. Yeah, listen, we definitely know he was greedy for sure. And I do agree with what you said about Mikey Scars. Captain Coke says, this is the best interview you've ever done. Well, thanks for that. And
thank you.
You have a fan of this guy.
Thank you, Captain. Are you a real captain?
The Captain and Coke. It's a drink, I think. Any good quotes John would say?
Yeah, I could give you a few. Don't reach into anybody's pocket. Everybody's got to earn a living. Don't be greedy. He would tell me, don't be a tough guy. You got hundreds of guys that could be a tough guy for you. You just be you. Be Lewis.
Gotcha. Did he speak Italian ever?
No, I never heard him speak Italian.
Thank you for watching, Jay Walker. Appreciate it. All right, here we go. Vegas Pete asks, what was up with you wearing a wire on John Gotti Jr.'s lawyer in the courthouse bathroom when you try to set him up and give him $10,000 and tell him not to report the income? You're talking about Jeffrey Lichtman.
Jeff Lichtman. Let me tell you about Jeff Lichtman, okay? Jeff Lichtman took more cash, him and Jerry Shogell. You know, that's why John used to say, although Jeff Lichtman had no relationship with John Sr., but if you recall, John Sr. said, it's on a tape. He said, what is this, the Shogell Cutler crime family? And that was in reference to the money. But you see, these lawyers, I'm going to get to that, but I just want to tell you about the lawyers. These lawyers would go to John in the MCC or wherever he was, and he'd ask for money. They'd ask for money. Oh, John, we need this, we need that. And John would say, all right, you know, I'll tell the kid. I'll tell the kid Lewis to give you. So they would go to John and say they'd ask for $20,000 or $50,000. I would only give them $20,000. I would say, no, you're not getting that kind of money. You know, next time around. And they would never go to complain to John. But see, John and I, that was the deal we made, because John could never say no. That was a thing he had. He could never say no. So they would go to him and, you know, what's your fees and all this? He's all right, I'll tell Lewis, because no lawyer could go see John without me setting it up or without my permission. John would not see anybody. He wouldn't come down unless he knew who was visiting him. So, yeah, that was the little thing John and I had going. I would say, Grandpa, that was what I would call him, Grandpa. Let them ask you for what they want. They'll come to me. Whatever they ask for, I'm cutting it by 50. He says, okay, good, perfect. Because they were bloodsuckers. Every one of them were bloodsuckers. But to get back to Jeffrey Lichtman, yeah, the government wanted to set him up. He was driving John crazy. John Jr., I'm sorry, he had no relationship with Senior. He was driving John Jr. crazy for money. And the government was after Lichtman. They're probably still after him.
So you were involved in taking some money from him?
I never took no money from him. The government gave me $10,000. They says, go give it to Lichtman. Lichtman didn't have a clue. You know, he gets online. He sounds like a big shot. And he didn't have a clue.
And nothing ever really happened to Lichtman because he's still around.
Yeah, nothing ever happened to him.
Do you think John Sr. treated Joe Watts better than his own son?
Absolutely not. John Sr. knew what Joe Watts was all about. He wasn't, listen, John, you couldn't trick John. John was you think John became boss because he was a jerk off? He knew the game. Joe Watts bought his way through Castellano. Joe Watts was given diamonds, gold bars. We couldn't keep up with it. Every day, 2 cases of Petrus to the house. Joe Watts bought his way, bought himself a seat at the table. And John used him, and he used John. That's what the relationship was about.
Do you think Joe Watts is a rat?
I really don't know. So, I wouldn't want to,
There has been people have said that. I mean, Jerry Capisci wrote about it. Mikey Scars has discussed it. Some people believe he was the person that told them about the Ravenite. But you've never heard nothing about that?
No. You know what? I don't know. You don't even know the bug in the Ravenite?
Yeah.
Who did Joe Watts tell?
The government.
The government put the bug in the Ravenite.
Well, no, I'm saying he was the one that told them about it, like they were speaking up there. I mean.
Oh, I see. Either he did or Sammy the Bull, Sammy Gravano told him.
Right. We had a question. Why does Sammy hate you, or why do you hate him?
Because I know all about Mr. Scumbag, Faggot Gravano. I know all about him.
Don't say that word.
Okay, well, whatever. That other way of life that he chose, his gay way of life. And he is a despicable, I wouldn't even call him an animal. I don't want to insult the animals. His daughter had a flower shop, and he used to cry to John, "Oh, can't you get everybody in the garden? Can't you get her to do business? We need the business." I used to order flowers to my office, throw them out just to shut Sammy up so he shouldn't complain to John. Yeah, this is what Sammy was, just a scumbag of the worst order. There's nothing you could say about him, that he has no redeeming qualities. There is nothing redeeming about him. He's a bad, bad, bad person. And let me tell you something. It was 2 years. It was 2 years before John was taking Sammy out. This wasn't an overnight thing. John was taking Sammy out a year and a half before that indictment came down. Sammy was done. Frankie was a good guy, but Frankie was in over his head. But he was a good guy. He was in over his head. And what was going to be, just so you should know, the consigliere, if it went that way, was going to be Tommy Gambino. We had him convinced he was going to make Tommy number 3, and he wasn't sure what he was going to do with number 2. But with Tommy as number 3, because they became very close. Tommy was making barbecues at the house. Tommy was doing a lot of family things. John was going to it. Family. And yeah, so that was a very good thing. And Tommy was going to become the consigliere of the family. Sammy was probably going to go to mafia heaven. And who number 2 is going to be, I don't know. So I can't tell you.
Do you have any stories of Anthony Ruggiano, Fat Andy's son?
Just that he's a junkie. Yeah, just that he was a junkie. I have nothing bad or good to say about him. You know, I met him once or twice, but I really had nothing good to say about him.
Did John Gotti actually like Cracker Barrel?
Junior or senior?
John Senior.
No.
Did he ever go there?
No.
We've heard that someone said he went there. I'm trying to remember. I think it might have been Angel said that, or somebody. I forget.
Maybe Angel was having a dream that night.
Michelle Martinez, thank you for watching. What was the business arrangement with Scorpio Marketing and Albie Trim?
Well, Scorpio was housed in Albie Trimming's building. And yeah, hang on one second, Jeff.
All good. And by the way, guys, I'll put you on. Yeah, Lewis is on mute. He's got to attend to something real quick. Everybody, if you'd like to support our show further, please hit that super chat icon. Make sure you support us. It's always good to have Lewis on the show, and it's always good to sit down and chat, answer some questions. We'll stay on for a little bit longer. We still have a good amount of people in here. So Albie Trim and Scorpio Market, that was in the same building.
Yeah, Albie was, that was my father-in-law, Albie Kula. And yeah, so we were, John had his office upstairs. And so that's basically what it was. And yeah.
Scott K, what the hell are you talking about? Sign up for what? What are you talking about? I've never asked have I asked anyone to sign up for anything, Lewis? I don't remember doing that.
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Was Gotti Sr. good at diversifying his earnings from illegitimate resources into legitimate, or was it the other way around more?
I would have to say no. No, he was no Paul Castellano in terms of the business acumen. No, he was not. But those were different times, and Paul was more, Paul's families were maybe 200-300 million. Weston Beef, Joseph's, they just sold Weston Beef for a few $100 million. So, no, don't forget, Paul was there a lot longer, and Paul was more of the business acumen than John.
Yeah, very business savvy. Did you know Skinny Dom?
I did.
What'd you think of him? I
liked him. I had no dealings with him, but he was always a perfect gentleman. Well, they were all a perfect gentleman to me, But Skinny Dom was a good guy to me.
By the way, if I don't ask you a question, we've answered it or asked it. I mean, we talked about Mikey Scars. We talked about gambling stories. We talked about Joe Caridi and Hudson and McCoy. We talked about all that stuff. Did John acknowledge his love shot he had with Neil's daughter?
Yes.
With you?
Yes.
Got you. And again, I'm not going to delve too deep into that. I've talked about it. It's happened. She obviously deserves her privacy.
Correct.
And we won't disrespect the family by talking about that. What was Lewis's thoughts on Angelo and John splitting the way they did and how it affected John?
Well, that, he was very close to Angelo Ruggiero for a lot of years. He loved the guy. And John had to do what was, politically correct at that time and what his beliefs were. But he always had a strong love and affection for Angelo. They go back when they're kids. So, yeah.
Lewis was the Meyer Lansky of the 80s.
I wish I was. I wish I had the money Meyer Lansky had.
Oh, man. A lot of questions here. A lot of questions. Let me find a few more here. When did Lewis meet John Sr.?
Early 80s.
And that was before he was even boss. How old were you at that time? You were like around 18, 20?
Yeah, I was a kid.
How old are you now, Lewis?
I'm still a kid.
48.
I'm 65.
Let's hear some Mike Coiro stories. And that's who essentially you met John through. Mike Coiro is.
Yeah. Mike was an attorney. He was my immediate next door neighbor in Merrick, Long Island. And Mike and his wife, Stephanie, he was in my family house. I was in his house, and we just became close. It was, a lifetime relationship. And, Mike was a lawyer that crossed the line out of necessity because Mike used to gamble. Mike was a gambler too. Good guy, stand-up guy. The guy did 8 years in Raybrook, and he was abused. They put him on diesel therapy. The BOP wanted to break him. The FBI wanted to break him. Mike stood up to the door, and ultimately he came home. John Sr. supported him. He was on the Gambino pension plan. And then ultimately Mike went to Las Vegas with his wife to live. And Mike died of he was a big drinker, Mike, and he died of a heart attack.
Wow.
And whatever assets Mike had, he bequeathed to me and my children. So that's how close I was to Mike.
Wow. I never knew that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, what do you think of the news nowadays comparing John Gotti to Donald Trump?
Well, John never had any relationship with Donald Trump on any level. What happened when we owned the restaurant in the city called Denoy, Trump used to follow Donald around. Trump used to follow John around. When he would come to Denoy with Marla Maples, that's when he was married to Marla. Mm-hmm. And he always had this fantasy. He wanted to meet John, and John would never, I can never let Trump come over to the table to shake his hand. And so that was basically it. If he knew John was at a restaurant or heard John was there, Trump would show up there.
So did they ever meet?
No.
They've never met.
Never met. They were in the same locations, but John would never acknowledge him.
Why is that?
Because we were close to Leona Helmsley, and Leona Helmsley hated Donald Trump. She despised him.
Do you think John Sr. would vote for Trump today?
No.
He wouldn't.
No.
He would vote liberal. He'd vote for Kamala Harris.
I don't think he'd vote for her either, but I don't think he would vote for Trump. He was definitely not a Trump guy.
Michael Blade says Sammy's a no good rat.
That a rat is really not a strong enough word to describe the type of human being he is. Look what he did to his son. Look what he did to the closest people to him.
Did Sammy kill his brother-in-law to keep him from outing him?
Absolutely. 100%.
I do know as well, and I've talked about this. When I interviewed Sammy, that was one thing he did not want to talk about. Don't bring up Nikki Shabetta. Don't bring up Nikki Shabetta. Don't bring up Nikki Shabetta. So we also
And
know,
another thing, the government sealed a lot of the records about Nikki Shabeta when during discovery, when we were asking for discovery, they were fighting not to give us anything on Shabeta.
wow, I didn't know that. 460 people watching. Thanks for being here. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you support the channel. What did Richie Gotti bring to the table? Did John get along with him?
Richie Gotti brought nothing to the table. He's a fucking bum, a fucking thief, and a fucking lowlife. John never even looked at him, never paid attention to him.
Was his brother?
He stole. Listen to me. He stole. Pete left $50,000 with him to pay for the funeral. He stole the money. He says, I'm not paying for the funeral. You paid for the funeral. You were his pet. I paid for the funeral. I didn't give a fuck. But he stole that money. And then he said to me, I'm going to give the tips to all the limo drivers, $5,000. He never gave the tips either. Danny Marino said to me one day, he says, Lewis, let me ask you a question. He said, I already know the answer. What happened to the $5,000? I says, Richie stole that too. He says, I thought so. Yeah, that's who Richie Gotti is. Stole from him, stole from Jeannie, stole from everybody.
When John Gotti walked into a restaurant, how was he greeted by others?
You could hear a pin drop. You could hear a pin drop when John Gotti Sr. walked into a restaurant. They loved him. They adored him.
Interesting. I didn't know if people.
We went to a restaurant in Queens one night, Stella's in Floral Park, and it was a wise guy restaurant. And there were cops at the table and a fireman and white shirt guys, high ranking guys. Every one of them came over to him.
Really?
Yeah. From every walk of life. I mean, when we went to Florida, Sophia Loren, Whitney Houston, you name it. The Trump family from South Africa, they're real billionaires. They would come over to him. Everybody at the pool. It was like, he couldn't get any peace. They were all, Ponte, Sophia's son. Everybody. That Joe Watts was there for that which he wanted to meet Sophia.
Is it true? There's a rumor that John Gotti had a relationship with Whitney Houston. Is that true?
Not true at all. She used to sing to him. She'd come into my apartment, my father-in-law's apartment, or we'd go into her place and she'd play the piano and sing. He had no relationship with Whitney Houston.
I have heard, though, he did have a relationship where he was attracted to a black singer, though. Is that true?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Any stories about Vinny Gotti?
None. High and by.
What type of coffee did John Sr. drink?
Espresso.
Any brand?
I don't know the brand. 3 cups, 4 cups, 6 cups. He was hooked on that espresso.
By the way, you mentioned John liked orange juice.
Sometimes. That's
not true.
Well, he did like orange juice, but that was the standing joke. Because one day, I was at the house and his wife says, Johnny, she used to call him Johnny. Johnny, you want some juice? And he turned around, he says, when I want juice, I'll ask for it. So that's how that became a standing joke. But he wasn't a big fan of orange juice, no.
Angel said he didn't like it.
Mm-mm. I don't even know if Angel knew what he liked.
Do you have any Bobby Borriello stories?
All I could say is I only have good thoughts about Bobby Borriello. A tough guy, loved John Sr. and John Jr., and just a good guy, in my opinion.
Do you think we should all pool some money together to try bail Gene out?
No, what I think you should do is start a GoFundMe and find a psychiatrist that lives in Tampa to help him and get him on some Lexapro.
That would be a good idea. Gene is out, though. He wasn't around in prison that long.
It's a sad thing with this Gene, Jeff, because what's going to happen is someone's just going to kill him. He's going to fuck with the wrong guy and someone's going to take him out.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that when he was around. If he was around in the 80s, he probably wouldn't have lasted. And I think he knows that. What did John think about the DeCalvacanti family? Some of their informants seemed terrified of him.
Yeah, I mean, he had involvement with them. Everybody, you got to understand, John was a real tough guy. No bullshit. That's who he was, you know. But he was also, he had like how do I say this? He had this personality that he liked it to be, he wanted to, you couldn't buy him. If you were in business with him, he wasn't the type of guy, in other words, he wanted everybody around him to earn. Like Paul wasn't like that. Castellano wasn't like that. He was a vacuum cleaner, Paul. Keep it coming in. Keep it coming in. John liked everybody to earn, take care of their families. Senior, I'm talking about. That's really how he was. As long as he had for him and the people he loved, he didn't want to take. He wasn't that type of person. He let you live. He was a let and live type guy that way. But if you fucked him, or if there was something that went down that was big, then you paid.
Right. Did you ever meet Neil Delacroce?
Twice.
How was that like?
That was another real tough guy. Yeah, that's a stone cold killer.
Sure.
Look at his eyes. You didn't mess with him.
Is there any truth to Junior Gotti ripping off Gene on real estate?
It's possible because that's how Junior operates. But I think he'd be making a big mistake to fuck with Jeannie.
100%. Thank you, Brian Whalen. Appreciate you watching. I believe that's Roy Cohen in the photo there.
Yeah, it looks like Roy. That's when he had. Yeah, that's when he was suffering of AIDS.
Yeah, he was a weird looking guy for sure.
Yeah, but he was the real deal.
Lewis is a fountain of knowledge. Great to hear him talk. Thanks for watching, man. Gerard, thanks for watching. Michelle, thanks for watching. A lot of people in here. Lewis, can you tell us about Norman DuPont?
Norman, he ran the Ravenite. And yeah, he's in jail now for life. But Norman fucked up because that club should have been secure, and that building should have been secure. That was owned by Joe the Cat, who John hated. And so that was Norman. He was supposed to run the Ravenite, and he did run it.
John Gotti called Joe Lafort a heartless motherfucker. Do you know why?
And if John called him that, then that's what he was.
He doesn't seem like that. Seems like a young or old guy that just did what he was told.
Greedy fucking guy.
Fair enough. Could John enjoy his life and money with the constant stress of trials?
Believe it or not, he did enjoy. John's life was very simple. Food, his kid. You remember, John didn't meet any of his grandchildren. Okay, the only grandchild he really knew was Angel's daughter. The other kids were younger. I mean, we would go out to dinner, and Vicky's kids were there, but they were young, so they didn't have that bond yet. He never knew any of Junior's kids, maybe high and by, but they were young. They don't have many memories of that. But John was able to handle the stress of the trials. We would go out to Wednesday. We'd go out to the Hamptons every Wednesday, out to the Hamptons, walk around, go on the beach, whatever he decided to do. No wise guys, nobody, just us. And we dealt with the stress, to take him to Florida, go here. There were a lot of things, and he was good with that.
What do you think he would have thought of that show they had out, Growing Up Gotti?
There wouldn't have been no show. Do you think Vicky Gotti would have been on shows if her father was home? Do you think Angel would be doing those?
No, but let's say he was in jail and he would have been around in jail.
It would have never went on. So you're asking me a question that it would have never happened. And that Growing Up Gotti was a disgrace, a disgrace. And by the way, John never owned that house. John never lived in that house.
Right. Yeah.
John had nothing to do with that house.
Yeah, I've mentioned that. Some people call it the Gotti Mansion.
It's the Agnello Mansion.
What are your thoughts on John A-Light?
He did a lot of work for John Jr. He had no relationship with John Sr., but yes, he did do a lot of work for Jr.
Was Gene the only brother John respected?
Yes, 100%.
Did John have any favorite hobbies away from La Cosa Nostra?
No. La Cosa Nostra, a hobby. Did he play tennis? No. Pete played tennis, but John, no. Did John go bowling? No. He did like to go. He did like a Yankee game. He would like to go to the Yankee games. George Steinbrenner, always used to reach out, bring John to the games. So yeah, that he did. He did like to watch the Yankees, and he liked the gambling. Like the horses.
Yep. Do you dislike the Carrazos or Danny Marino?
I really had nothing to do with Nicky Carrazzo. JoJo and I were always good friends. I have nothing but good with him. There was always a joke going around, and John and I used to laugh about it. Everybody's with JoJo. If we met you on the street, he would say, "Oh, Jeff Nadu's with me." That was like the expression. So it was always like a joke going around. Everybody's, with JoJo. But JoJo always showed me the utmost of respect. Holidays, baskets, flowers. Always. I can only say good stuff about JoJo and his son Joseph, the attorney, as well.
Why do they call them wise guys when they were everything but?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Very good question. Gene said on another channel he was coming after Jeff.
Gene's going after nobody. He's going after his nightgown.
Yeah, I don't think he's coming after me, but
no.
Listen, we had our conversation. Obviously, I've talked about that. I'm not going to go into it anymore. Matt says, I love this interview. Well, thank you, Matt. Yeah, good questions here and good answers, obviously, from Lewis. Who is tougher, John or Gene?
I would say John.
Really?
Yeah. But Gene was tough.
Do you have any good Arnold Squitieri stories?
Good man. He reached out to me. And when he was the acting boss, he reached out to me. He says, you have carte blanche. You have any problems, you come to my house immediately. He says, you do whatever you want. So I only have good thoughts and feelings about Arnold.
He died a couple of years back.
Yeah, good guy.
Did John seem like he came to terms with going to jail?
I think so, yes.
I think he had to.
Yeah.
What was Norman convicted of? Murder.
Murder, yeah.
Murder 1. He killed a person called Harmon Fuchs, who was a car dispatcher. Norman is doing life. He's pretty old now, too. Thank you for watching. Isaac FDZ. We'll hang on for a little bit longer. You good with time there, Lewis?
Yeah, keep it going.
All right. Was John really a heavy gambler? Yes.
Absolutely.
Do you have any Roy DeMeo stories?
None.
Yeah, he was pretty much gone by the time you were around. Mm-hmm. Did you know Big Paul Castellano?
Met him once.
How was that?
High and by kind of a thing with John.
What are your thoughts on Carmen Agnello?
Carmen's a good guy. He did time. He's a good guy. He was, married Vicky. Tremendous earner. I only have good stuff to say about Carmine. Junior, of course, try to, get over on him too. I don't think Junior missed anybody, but Carmine, I always had a good relationship with Carmine.
I just got a text while doing this saying that there's no way any boss would ever sit with you. What do you think about that?
The problem that you see that you have to understand, wherever John went, I went on a lot of occasions. So that's just the way it was. And they sat and they did because I was with John. And that's the way it was. A lot of people don't understand a lot of things. I didn't understand it at the time. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Sure. Did you have any interactions with Steven Sergio?
None.
Yeah, I don't know much about him either. I've heard his name though. Did you ever meet the Gemini twins?
Never.
How mad was John when he saw everything fall apart while he was in jail?
Furious, out of his mind.
What kind of things would he say about like what was going on the street, that sort of thing?
Well, when he was in the MCC, it was a lot easier for him to control. When they shipped him out to Marion, it became very difficult, and there were a lot of things in place, but unfortunately greed took over. and that's what happens, relying on your son and your brother. And, but I try to keep myself in the loop as much as I could, because John would call me as much as he could. And, when John and I had a way of speaking to each other. So, yeah, did the best he can. But it was the longer he was in Marion with the isolation, one phone call a month and, limited visits, it was tough.
What did John Gotti think of Jimmy Burke?
He liked Jimmy Burke. Jimmy Burke, wasn't part of John's crew, but, he was an earner with that whole Lufthansa thing. So, yeah, he liked Jimmy Burke.
Someone asked, what do you think of Sammy the Bull? We talked about Sammy the Bull.
We can't get into him again. He's a low life.
We're not going to say anything further. How involved was Quack Ruggiero after being shelved? Did everyone avoid him?
Well, that was the word. Everyone should avoid him. I mean, I went to see him once because I wanted to go see him, and Junior defied his father, and Junior was very close to Angelo, and Junior would go see him all the time, especially when he was dying.
What was John Gotti's favorite deli?
Katz's or Carnegie. When he was in the garment center, we used to go to Carnegie. We'd bring it in.
No way. I didn't know that. Do you have any stories about the Carneglia brothers?
Just that one brother was out of his mind. I don't have much about John except that he was close to John Sr. But the other Carneglia brother was a mad dog.
Were there any picture videos with Lewis and John together? Yeah,
multiple ones.
Yeah, there's the thumbnail of this video is John and Lewis next to each other. Is it true John had Carmine Agnello shot when he was dating Victoria? No, he was beaten up.
Beaten up.
Yeah, Peter. Not Peter. There was what the hell was that guy's name? I forget his name. I did a video on Carmine Agnello, and we talked about it there. Bud Zaccaro. That was his name. He was involved with that, I believe.
But as we all know, if John really didn't want Carmine to marry Vicky, there would have been no wedding. So,
right.
Yeah, that's all bullshit.
Was Peter Gotti, John's son, ever a part of anything?
No. Just a great, great son. He lived in Springfield, Missouri for up to a year with a fish tank and a goldfish in his room, and went to visit his father 3 times a week. The most devoted son, never asked for anything, never wanted anything. Just a heart of gold when it came to his father. And to this day, I love Peter and miss him.
Did you ever meet Steven Seagal?
Never. Well, at the trial, he was there once, but I never had nothing to do with him.
Did you ever go to John Sr.'s grave?
Yes.
When was that?
A couple of years ago. And don't forget, I buried him. I was literally in the whole thing. I went in the coffin, not the coffin, in the mausoleum, and I put John's head and his son's Frankie head together, that both coffins were touching. I wheeled it on the wooden spirals that are in the mausoleum. I was the one that John wanted to. I should put both heads together. That's how they're buried.
Yeah, there was, not to interrupt, but there was a lot of people that said there was no way that that would have been true, that you would have been involved with the burial and that sort of thing.
I was involved in every aspect. I planned the wedding. I did the wedding. I took the body home. Everything.
Yeah, and I do know you spoke at the funeral.
I delivered the eulogy.
Right. Yep. What was Willie Boy Johnson like?
A mad dog.
Thanks for watching Eternal One. Did you ever meet Dom Montiglio?
No.
How racist was John Gotti?
Not at all. Not at all. No, let me tell you something. The homeless, he used to make me go give money out to the homeless. Thanksgiving, he would call up, Phil Castellano. He'd fill up 2 trucks of turkeys. He would drive through the Bowery, drive through Hell's Kitchen, and give out turkeys to everybody. He was not a racist at all.
Well, I'm not going to say he was a racist, but he did say being a N-word was an embarrassment. Being John Gotti's grandson is an honor.
Yeah, I can only tell you how he was with me and what I saw him do for people that were less fortunate on holidays and Christmas and different things. And, you know, that's all I could. And think, you know, I can only speak to what I know.
I don't know if he donated money to charity, Tim, but as Lewis just said, he gave out turkeys and he was very giving.
No, we St. Helens and Howard Beach, we gave $50,000 to.
That's right.
John was not a religious man. He didn't believe in any of that kind of stuff.
I'm not going to go into this. We talked about this when we interviewed with Lewis about John Favara. We kind of talked about that. And we don't know if John was a part of that. He probably was, though, as far as ordering it. Did you know Michael Paradiso?
Knew him, but didn't know him, if you know what I mean. You got to understand, John sheltered me.
You knew of him?
Knew of him. When I would go to the club, there were two entrances to the club. There was the left side. That was for all the guys to hang out. And then there was his side. He never wanted me to go on that side. He used to make me go on the other side. So, he treated me that way. So they were there. I always respected people, but, he babied me a little bit.
Who was your least favorite person around on a regular basis?
Least favorite wise guy?
Yeah.
Junior.
Gotti?
Yep. He didn't have a sincere bone in his body. All about the money and who he could rob and get from. We put an extension on the house in Howard Beach, and it was $150,000 extension. Because, those are small houses in Howard Beach, unless you fix it. So we got the contractor, and John said to me, Lewis, we'll put the extension on for my dad. I said, okay, good. I said, he says to me, I'll pay $75,000 and you'll pay $75,000. I says, good. Jeff, did you get the $75,000? I never got it. So I paid the whole $150,000 for the extension on the house for his father.
Wow.
There was no truth. There was no sincerity. When I went to jail for that perjury thing, Junior never called my wife, never went to the house to say, do you need anything? Do you need a quart of milk? How's Lewis doing? Nothing. Zero. If it wasn't all about Junior, he didn't give a fuck.
What did John Gotti think of Joey Merlino?
Now or then?
Well,
now you know what the answer is. Back then, I don't think he had too much to do with Joey Merlino.
What do you mean he would? Wait, you're saying now he wouldn't like him?
Joey Merlino, he's on all these YouTube things.
John wouldn't.
Listen, if John was home or John was alive or he was the boss, half of these people would be dead.
Do you think he would ever have talked to anybody about that life?
No.
Like John Miller or anybody?
John, before Barbara Walters used to call me constantly. She wanted to go and see him, and he wouldn't do it. I mean, we had Pierce Morgan, the biggest people, Anderson. He says, Lewis, don't even waste my time. I'm not seeing any of these people.
What was your feeling on Frankie Lacasio?
I liked him as a person, but he was in over his head.
Who did John Jr. rob? Can we get some names?
Everybody. Anybody he was associated with, he took advantage of in some way, shape, or form.
Did you have a jail fight with Randy Pizzola?
I did.
Yeah, I think you told us about that on the.
Randy had a thing with Senior, and he kept saying bad shit about Senior. And what happened was when I got to jail in Lewisburg, I had no problems there. He was the only problem there, and there were no wise guys there. It was just guys coming off long bids and just wanting to finish up. And this guy was terrifying the whole campus. And he used to, come eat with me. And the guy was he was a scumbag. I didn't want nothing to do with him. So Herbie Sperling was behind the wall. And a couple of the guys in my unit worked in commissary behind the wall, Jeff. And Herbie used to send me sneakers, Haagen-Dazs ice cream, through these guys. So one of the guys went to Herbie and said to Herbie, this Randy Pizzola is really out of order. And I never had a physical fight with Randy. So Herbie got word of that, and Herbie took care of it. I don't know what he did or how he did it, but one day Randy had a broken arm, he had a broken nose, and then Randy went to the FBI and filed a complaint against me that I assaulted him. I never had a fight in my life. How was I going to assault Randy Pizzola? But lo and show the story, I find out later when I came home, Lieutenant LaRue at the jail called me. He says, I'm going to send you this FBI report because I want you to see it, what this Pizzola did. So I gave the report to Jackie Nose. I says, because I found out later that Jackie Nose was friends with Pizzola's uncle, who owned an auto body shop in Queens, and Jackie Nose was shaking the uncle down for $500 a month. So I said to Jackie one day, why are you siding with Pizzola on this thing? But I found out afterwards that the uncle was being shooken down by my dear friend, my loving friend, Jackie Nose. And when I showed him the FBI report, he couldn't believe it, that Pizzola went to the FBI to file charges against me. Whatever happened to Pizzola in jail happened. He deserved it. He was a lowlife. And that's what happened. And I understand he's also in mafia heaven.
Yep, he was killed.
Yeah.
What did John think of Michael Franzese?
Well, he liked his father. That I could tell you. He liked Sonny.
Yeah, he said, tough guy, tough guy.
Yeah, he did like Sonny. That I will tell you. I don't have to comment on Michael Franzese. That speaks for itself.
Were you in the city on 9/11? If so, where and what was your experience?
Believe it or not, on 9/11, I was in my dentist's office getting a cavity filled. That's where I was on 9/11 on Long Island.
Well, do you remember anything?
Well, I was watching it on TV with the planes going into the building, but I was in Wantor getting my teeth fixed at the time.
Did you ever go on John Gotti's boat? Not guilty.
Yes.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
From the way John Jr. talks about how he used to treat his wife, I would think that we're not going to talk about that.
No, and it's not true.
Yeah, Scott K, what the fuck is wrong with you? And what has been with you tonight, man? Scott K, you're really out of order with some of this stuff. Unbelievable. All right, a couple of more here. I'd be interested to hear Mikey Scars and RJ's reaction to this interview. Well, I would think they are. I mean, we didn't really talk much about Mikey Scars.
Mm-mm.
Did you ever meet Tony Salerno?
No.
That's also not Lewis's home. Keep in mind, it's not light out anymore. It's
right.
But yeah, I can't believe Scott K. You're way out of line with that question, man. Jesus. I'm not sure if I heard it correctly, but did John Sr. not like Jackie Nose or constantly make him the butt of jokes? Not sure where I heard that.
He liked Jackie Nose, but Jackie Nose was never an earner. And the reason he wasn't an earner is because he was with John all the time, taking care of it. There was always a captain, and Jackie Nose was the captain. But after I spoke to a few of the different captains, everybody now was making sure Jackie had money because it was ridiculous. The guy couldn't earn because he was with John all the time. So, yeah, but I had him he was on the payroll also at Scorpio Marketing.
Do you agree with Merlino's take that Sonny Franzese is a rat for talking to Michael?
No.
Yeah, I don't think anybody does. Emmanuel Ibrahimov. Great show. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's a green screen.
Correct.
All right, we'll do one or two more, and then we will get out of here. What did you think when you first heard John Jr. did a proffer, and what did you think when you read the 302? What did guys in the street think about the proffer?
Assuming it's true?
It's true.
Okay. But everybody was out of their mind over it. Just like that story when he went to go see his father, that he wants to leave the mob. I want closure, Dad. I want closure. You know what? He wanted closure. He should have given back all the fucking money that he made from the mob. which he kept, and he's living on now. Although now his son is an MMA fighter making money, so I'm sure he'll take that money too. But yeah, no.
Did you ever meet Richard Gomes?
No.
He was from up in Rhode Island. Lewis, great stuff. We're going to have to do this again. It's always fun to chat with you. You have a great kind of thought about John Sr. You were around him regularly. You knew him well. And it's always good to, kind of bend your ear on some of this stuff. If you want more Lewis, we did an interview with him about 2 months ago on the channel. Did pretty well, and we went through all sorts of different things. Lewis, I'm guessing we'll talk to you again. Would you want to come on down the road?
Of course.
What are you working? Do you have anything you're working on? You're trying to get into gear?
I'm working on a few different things, which we'll leave it at that for now. But as soon as I know, Jeff, you'll know.
Yeah, maybe we'll work on something. You're an interesting guy, Lewis.
Thank you.
To work with on things.
You're only hitting. This is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, well,
tip of the iceberg.
This is
I got the tapes. I got the pictures. I got everything.
Well,
Junior says he's got the tapes at Marion. I got a copy of the tapes at Marion too.
Did you ever keep in contact with John the last days of his life?
Every day.
Yeah, I know you did.
Every single day.
Thanks for watching, Michelle Martinez, Noah Jones. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, still over 500 people in here. Thanks for watching, Margaret.
Keep it going, Jeff.
Say that again.
Keep it going.
All right. I don't have too many more questions here. If anybody has any more, is it true Jackie the Nose was a captain of a bunch of elderly crew members that didn't earn anything?
When?
Later in his life.
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah, we Jackie passed on, so we won't say much more. But let's try to do this again, Lewis. Pretty soon.
You know who was a good guy, Jeff? Joe Acuri.
Oh yeah,
he was a real good guy.
Never did any prison time in his life.
No, you see, Junior didn't know a lot of things. What I was doing, I used to meet with Joe Acuri. He didn't know any of that. I used to meet with Danny Marino. He didn't know anything that was going on. There was a lot of shit going on that he didn't know nothing about because he was not trusted.
Right. Thank you, April C. I appreciate it. Carmine S. Thanks for watching, man. Is it true everyone ate what John ate when going out to eat?
That would happen quite a bit. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Very true.
Do you think Junior was jealous about the relationship you had with his father?
100%. It ate him up alive.
That's your brother, John, though.
My brother, John. No, the only brother I have is Peter.
Was Junior's wife's family connected?
No. He was a carpet installer. Joey Ruggs, they called him.
Do you think Gene and Richie Gotti still talk to Junior?
No.
Lewis looks like Mike the Mouth Mattisau. I don't agree with that. Do you know any American-born LCN members who could speak Italian? A lot of them.
Some of the old timers I don't know.
$5 from Serrano. Thank you. Yes, The Irishman is a great mob movie. Thanks for supporting the channel. Danny F. Thank you. All right, Lewis, let's wrap it up here. Thanks for watching, everybody. And Lewis, thanks for coming on. You're always a good sport about all this. We'll keep you in mind down the road. We'll do some other things, and hopefully we can keep all this going. I've talked about leaving the mob genre, but I might hang around. We'll see.
Yeah, you're not leaving. I'm keeping you here.
All right, sounds good. And thanks everybody for watching. I really appreciate it. We'll have Lewis on again soon and take some questions. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time here on the Sit Down.